Good afternoon, participants. Yeah, I hope that I'm audible. Farida, can you just confirm?
Yes, I can
Yeah,
hear you,
yeah.
Srinivas.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, so we'll start today's talk. Uh, so on behalf of the Center for Biodiversity and Conservation Studies, Osmania University, I invite my resource person today, Ms. Farida Tampal, as well as all of you who are attending this particular lecture series and today's lecture to this wonderful session. And Farida is going to talk about an interesting topic, which is going to kind of, what do you say, start or push us to start thinking that what exactly is happening all around us and why it is important that people need to understand about biodiversity and its conservation. So without taking much of the time, we were thinking of starting at 2:30, but it's already nearing to 2:40. I'm waiting for the participants to join, but anyways, as they join, I'll admit them. And I request Dr. Harpreet Kaur, the postdoctoral fellow at the center, for giving a formal invitation and talking about today's speaker. Dr. Harpreet Kaur.
Hi, yes, thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible. I'll take that as a
Yes,
yes.
yes, you are.
Okay. Before we begin, I have a couple of requests to make. I would request all the participants to please keep their microphones muted all the time and unmute the microphones only when you want to ask a question, which would be at the end of the session. And also, please keep your cameras switched off if that's all right. And to start with, I'll take a couple of minutes to introduce and to list out the wonderful efforts that Farida Tampal Madam has been making towards conserving wildlife in India. Um, Farida is the state director of WWF India's Andhra Pradesh state office, which is now Hyderabad office, and her journey has given her encounters and experiences with landscapes and people across the country. In 1992, with a master's degree in ecology, Farida joined the Center for Herpetology at the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust as a research associate in captive breeding of venomous snakes. She then joined WWF India West Bengal State Office as a senior project officer. And for the next 8 years, she was engaged in wildlife conservation and research in the Eastern Himalayan and Sundarbans landscape. Both are the priority areas under WWF. In 2004, she took over the Andhra Pradesh office as the state director, continuing her interest in herpetology by including it as a study component in the numerous biodiversity projects she has initiated in erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. Farida is she also represents WWF on many national and state level steering committees like EGREE Foundation, Biodiversity Museum Committee, State Compensatory Afforestation Management Planning Authority, BioSAP, Tree Protection Committee, and ZAPAT, and CII's Green Landscapes and Green Education Committee. She conducts training for the All India Service and state service officers and other government employees on biodiversity, wildlife conservation, climate change, and Wildlife Protection Act. Similarly, she has mentored several youth groups and individuals who joined WWF as interns to pursue wildlife biology as a career. And it is a firm belief that youth is synonymous with innovation and creativity. And during her stint at West Bengal and also presently, she's involved in ensuring sustainable livelihoods for women communities in the forest areas. And she has also written an article on women and environment, where she has linked environmental degradation with women rights issues. Uh, One of our pioneer initiatives has been the introduction of renewable energy to improve water management in the forest areas to benefit wildlife as well as local tribal communities. This is the first of its kind receiving national recognition by bodies like National Tiger Conservation Authority and is now being replicated in other states. As Farida says, you must walk the talk to make things happen. I think it would be really, really wonderful to listen to her, and I thank on behalf of CBCS OU for inviting the invite. I mean, for I'm sorry to um, accepting the invite, and I thank Farida for being here on this platform today, and we have been waiting for this wonderful talk. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Harpreet. And thank you, Dr. Srinivaslu, for inviting me for this talk. And it's great to be talking when this Wildlife Week happening. And it is like, I must first congratulate Dr. Srinivaslu and his entire team, especially for the Center for Biodiversity and Conservation Studies, a much needed center for our state. And I'm looking forward to collaborating and seeing what all we can do for conservation and of biodiversity in this particular state. So having said that, there is a lot that's happening around, lots that happening presently in the situation that we are, and ideally I'm sure I would have been at the OU campus giving this talk because I love going to the campus, lots of good biodiversity there, lots of trees, and I'm sure that the entire length and breadth of the biodiversity has already been discovered by Dr. Srinivaslu and his team. But it's a wonderful historical campus, and I would ideally have loved to be there giving this talk, but the situation that we are presently in, I think we are all closeted in our homes, talking about biodiversity sitting at homes, and that isn't really great fun because biodiversity after all is outside. And when we talk about biodiversity, I think we are at a very critical juncture, and that is why I titled my talk as "Is Biodiversity as at the Tipping Point?" So before I move on to, and mostly in this presentation, I would be talking more about the recently released report, which is the Living Planet report, and very many of you may be aware of this. This is released every 2 years, and it talks about the status of biodiversity that presently is. So before moving on, I'm sure some of you may not be familiar with this organization, WWF. So I request Sudha to move to the next slide. Helping me in my presentation today is my colleague Sai Sudha, who's our Senior Education Officer. She is based out of Puttaparthi, as she could not get to Hyderabad, and she joined in between this pandemic time. So I request Sudha to shift the slide. Sudha? Sudha, you may unshare and share again. Okay. Technical glitches are all the time there because of this bandwidth issues everywhere. So are you able to share? Just bear with us for a while. So well, the next slide that was coming up, let me just continue because it's something which I have been talking about, and I would like to.
Ma'am, are you able to see my screen?
No, we are not able to see your screen, Sudha. So while Sudha is sharing the screen, the next slide is about the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF. And as many of you may already know that WWF has completed 50 years of conservation experience in India. Last year on 27th November 19, we completed our 50th year. That makes us one of the older organizations in the country, which is working on conservation. We have the logo of the organization, as all of you know, Panda.
Can you see, ma'am?
No, not as yet, Sudha.
And we all are able to see.
We can see Farida.
Oh, but I am not able to see for some reason.
Madam, just a pin your Sudha.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now it's come. I think
Yeah.
could be my bandwidth issue could be. So that's why I had requested Sudha to be there with me to share the presentation. So it could be my bandwidth issue. So like I said, it's an organization. We started off in 1961 globally in Switzerland and in India in 1969. And we had large number of offices across the globe, more than 100 of them. And in India, we work close to 75 plus locations in about 20 countries. And it's a dynamic organization, and so is the logo, which has continuously kept changing, keeping in trend with the times. One of the reasons that we have a lot of students in the school used to ask me that we do not have giant panda in the country, in India. Why do we have a giant panda as our logo? So the thing is that when this particular when WWF was founded in 1961, the inspiration for the logo came from Chi-Chi. This was a giant panda which was living in London Zoo. And this was the same year that WWF was created. And the founders of WWF, they wanted a logo which would be strong, which would be a recognizable symbol, overcoming all language barriers. And with the years, our logo of the giant panda has also adapted with our work and the experiences. So it has changed from a panda which was sitting, and now to a panda which you see as in what was established in 2000 as WWF with that particular design of the logo. And the best part is it is a black and white logo, and it is replicable on any surfaces. Now let's move to the next slide. WWF India works with the mission to stop the degradation of the planet's natural environment and build a future in which humans live in harmony with nature. So our work is with varied group of institutions, individuals across different sections of society. These alliances strive to address the common goal of conserving biodiversity, sustainably using natural resources, and maintaining ecosystems and ecosystem services for the survival of wildlife and people depending upon them. And like I said, this year we are celebrating our work which spans across conservation of key wildlife species and their habitats, management of wetlands, climate change adaptation, driving sustainable solutions for business and agriculture. We work on empowering local communities, combating illegal wildlife trade, and also inspiring youth and children to take positive action for the climate. So that's about WWF. Moving on to my next slide. There's nothing more that I would be saying which all of you all do not know. That biodiversity boosts ecosystem productivity, where each species, no matter how small, has an important role to play. So biodiversity is about maintaining viable ecosystems, because biodiversity is what keeps this earth stable. And without biodiversity, everything will become corrupt, overflowing of one single species, like you see very often monospecies cultivation. It's not really great. So overflowing of one single species and one epidemic can actually wipe out the entire whole ecosystem. So it is a very crucial role that biodiversity plays. And the next slide I will share also, I'm sure you all would know that we have lot of provisioning of services that biodiversity does. We have goods we get, we have services we get. The provisioning services of food, fiber, and water we get. We get regulatory services in the form of controlling of climate and diseases, supporting services through nutrient cycling, crop pollination, as well as we have a lot of cultural services also from biodiversity, and that means that we have spiritual links with biodiversity. We use it for recreational purposes, and all this comes to us completely free. And I'm sure you will all agree on that, that we do not pay for the air we breathe. We do not pay for the water that we get maybe you're just paying some water bills, but that's not just enough for the amount of water that we are using and the way we are using it. So that moves on to my next slide, where we are talking about this biodiversity and where we are presently. The biodiversity report, well, the Living Planet report, is produced every 2 years, like I said earlier, by WWF, and this involves a lot of inputs from leading experts and other organizations across the globe. It's basically a health check for the planet. It shows how the natural world is doing, what are the threats that it's facing, and what this would mean for us humans. After all, centrally, it's all about us. I'm sure you will all agree. It's not just that we're talking about wanting to save the tiger or the rhino or the shark or the bees or the birds. It's basically all about us. So the conclusions and recommendations in this Living Planet report are based on an analysis of a large number of measures of biodiversity. And one of this is the Living Planet Index. So this year we have published the 13th edition of this index, and I will request Sudha to put the link of this particular report for those who want to take a look at the full report into the chat box, so you can maybe copy, paste and use it next time you want to refer to it. It is also available in our WWF India website as well as in our WWF International website for those who would like to take a look at it. So moving on, let us see what the Living Planet Index is all about. So like I said, it is a measure of the state of the world's biological diversity based on population trends of vertebrate species from terrestrial as well as freshwater and marine habitats. So the LPI, the Living Planet Index, has been adopted by the Convention of Biological Diversity, which we all know as CBD, as an indicator of progress towards this 2011 to 2020 target to take immediate and urgent action to halt the loss of biodiversity. If you can see, the whole thing is basically a downward curve. Whichever index, if you take a look at it, like you see on your right hand side, if you look at the red data list, red list index, so the red list index is based on the IUCN red list of threatened species, and it shows the trend in survival probability. So what is survival probability? It's the inverse of extinction risk over time. So if the red list index value of 1 equates to all species within a group qualifying at least concern. So if you go towards the topmost part of the graph where you see 1, it shows the species are of least concern, that is not expected to become extinct in the near future. As against that, if you see the index value of 0, it equates to species having got extinct. So a constant value over time, which you can see most of the group, some of the groups, is the overall extinction risk for the group has remained unchanged. The threat remains. So if the rate of biodiversity loss were reducing, the index would show an upward trend, and which is not so in the chart. You can see all of it is either constant or even towards the downward decline. So a decline in the index would mean that the species are being driven towards extinction at an accelerating rate, which is a big cause of concern to all of us. Likewise, if you see on your left hand side, you can see the species habitat index. Take a look at that. Even that, the species habitat index basically is human land use change and the climate change, how they are altering the landscapes worldwide. So it is based on remotely sensed monitoring and projection models, and offers an increasingly strong and near global capture of these changes to land cover. So basically land cover, land use change, which they talk about. So the species habitat index, it quantifies the resulting impact for species populations. So let's say for thousands of species with validated habitat association worldwide, the index measures the losses in habitat suitable range from observed or modeled habitat change. If you look at from 2000 to 2018, the index has fallen by 2%, indicating a strong and general downward trend in habitat available to species. Like I have my friend Imran also over here, and he will bear me out that while we were all rejoicing that there is an increase in tiger numbers, India has shown big announcements and people were all happy. But I don't know if everybody knows that it is, while we did have an increase in tiger numbers, what about the tiger occupancy areas, tiger occupied areas? Are they increasing? We are actually losing habitats for tigers. We are actually losing the tiger occupied areas. Please do not mind, that is my gong clock which starts ringing at the wrong time, always in the presentations. So like I was saying, it is the habitat available to the species which is on the downward trend. So for select regions and species, the species habitat index decrease is much steeper, sometimes even double-digit percentage, which suggests that there is an extensive contractions in total population sizes and the ecological role provided by the species. So that is.
Farida, one moment. Farida, I'm sorry to stop you. But there's one presenter, I believe, Venkat Nalimela. Mr. Venkat Nalimela, please stop your presentation.
Oops. I think he must have by mistake pressed it.
Yeah, no, I can remove him, but he cannot join back once again. So that's a new rule. So Venkat Nalimela, yes, thank you very much.
I think he must have by mistake pressed it.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
So no problem. So Venkat, if you want to share, maybe you can share later. Okay.
I know. I know.
That's okay. It happens.
Yeah. Sudha, please reshare, represent. I can see your presentation, but it's not showing.
Yes, sir. I'll share.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you become over dependent on technology, Srinivaslu.
Yeah, I know. I could have just removed it, removed the participant, but he could not join once again. Then right?
Yeah,
you will be losing on your wonderful, knowledge and experience, that expertise that you are sharing with. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We are back online.
Yeah. Please go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No problem. Okay. So that is about the species habitat index. Now, if you look at the biodiversity intact net index, I'm sorry, but that's how the whole biodiversity is today. And if I'm painting a very grim picture, it is how it is, and that's why it needs to be understood, and it needs to be, something needs to be done about it by all of us. So, and that's why I am presenting some of these as a thought-provoking matter, and also something that people will start taking action. I know most of the people who are on this group are already the converted lot, and I think all of us need to convert many more people into thinking on the right path. So when we come to the biodiversity intactness index, you can estimate how much this BII, as it is called, the biodiversity intactness index, it estimates how much originally present biodiversity remains on an average across the terrestrial ecological communities within a region. And it focuses on the effects of land use and related pressure, which have so far been the dominant drivers of biodiversity loss. So because it is estimated across a very large set of ecologically diverse animal and plant species, this index is a useful index for ecosystem ability to provide benefit to people. Like I said, it's always all about people. So basically, providing ecosystem benefit to people is what we term as ecosystem services. And I think many of you must have heard of this term. So it's basically the usefulness index of the ecosystem and its ability to provide benefits to people. So that is what we term it as ecosystem services. So if you look at that overall, the global average BII, or the biodiversity intactness index, is well below the proposed limit. The proposed limit should be actually 90%, whereas the average presently is 79%. And if you look at countries like Africa, if you can see in your graph, there is a brown color line and Africa written over there. It shows that it's really steeply declining. the brown line if you see, suggesting that the world's terrestrial biodiversity is already dangerously compromised. India is not put up there in the picture, but I'm sure that it will not be any much different. So this is how the whole index, these 4 indexes, look like to us. If we move on to the next slide, what is happening? The Living Planet Index shows that wildlife populations around the world have, on an average, declined by close to 68%. And this trend is not yet slowing down. So that is a big cause of concern. The decline in wildlife and wild places, both the species and spaces, is mostly due to the human activities, and it is starting to prevent living system from working as we need to in order to provide the needs of our growing human population. So there is so many different changes that we are all observing. We are all observing a rapid loss of freshwater diversity. We are observing loss of marine diversity. So there are so many things happening. It is essential that we take action to change this trend and bend the curve. If you can see what we are saying, bending the curve of biodiversity loss. And this means not only stopping it from declining, but making changes that allow it to recover. That is also important. So that the line on the graph shows an upward and biodiversity increases to the level we had in the past. This will not be easy, but we have to act quickly and with an understanding of the ways different parts of the living system depend on each other. And we can start to make the world wild again and therefore healthy and resilient. So that's why we say that by 2030, we should be we should be working towards the path of recovery. First, stabilization, declining right now, then trying for stability, and then recovery. So there is a long way to go and lots of things for us to do. So if you move on to the next slide, is it an SOS for nature? So yes, it is. I'm sure all of you will agree with me. Over the past so many decades, our activities have destroyed and degraded forests, grasslands, wetlands, and all the important ecosystems, threatening human well-being. 75% of the Earth's ice-free land surface has significantly altered, and as you all know, most of our oceans are polluted. 85% of our wetland areas have been lost. We have the destruction of ecosystem has led to so many millions of species being threatened with extinction over the next 100 years or so. And many of these extinctions are preventable if we conserve and restore nature. And when you see this particular seabird in front of you, I can just tell you that we were running a program which was called the Tide Turner program for youth, which is all about marine plastic and plastic pollution. And there was a very poignant film we were showing. I don't have the film today to show you, but in that film, there is a researcher who's been actually just going around different parts of the globe to look at seabirds and what is the kind of plastics they ingest. And they have found so much of plastic in the bodies of seabirds. And this plastic, mind you, is coming into our food chain as well as microplastics. And it is estimated that we are eating close to a credit card worth of microplastics in our food on a weekly basis, if that is statistics for you. 2.5 milligrams of microplastics in your food, and you can just look up how it comes into your food chain. So I'm sure there's a lot of data up there on the net for you. So moving on to the next one, plants, which we haven't talked much about. We keep talking about fauna all the time, but if you look at plants, 1 in 5 plants are threatened with extinction. Number of documented terrestrial plant extinction is almost twice as high as that of mammals, birds, amphibians combined. Not that many of us talk, we rarely talk much about plants. We are all talking about mostly tigers and rhinos and big animals, and less about smaller ones and smaller animals which Srinivaslu and his team all the time work upon. But plants also They are very important because they are basically the structural and ecological foundation of virtually everything, of all terrestrial ecosystems. I think all of you would agree on that. And it is a fundamental support of life on Earth, vital to our human being health, food, well-being, our crop diversity, our medicines, everything. And what is another thing which is ignored is the soil, which is a very critical component of our natural environment. And yet, most people are totally unaware of it, underestimate it, that the vital role soil biodiversity plays in our ecosystem and on which we depend heavily upon. So I think all of us would agree with me on this. Moving on, if you look at our insects, almost 500,000 insects are threatened with extinction. Do many of us talk about it? There is a recent evidence of rapid decline in insect abundance, diversity, biomass. But the picture is complex, and most evidence comes from a few taxa and a few countries in the northern hemisphere. That means that we still need to know what we are losing. And about bees, all of us know that even there is such rapid decline in bee colonies globally, and also same is the case in India, that we are losing out a lot of bee colonies and bee populations. And as you know, and bee provides such a crucial role in our ecosystem, the role of pollination, which is very, very critical for our crop diversity. And of course, climate change, what should I say, is one of the most and the biggest threat that nature faces today, and that all of us are facing day in and day out. It's become part and parcel of life. And I think climate change, or as everybody in Telugu, a word that I learned, Vatavaran Marpu, it is happening and it is real and it is there. And I don't think there can be any naysayers about it anymore. There cannot be anybody who will say that no, climate change is not happening. Unless POTUS and FLOTUS, they may disagree with us. Recent analysis have also shown that the combined effect of climate change and land use change is much worse than just the impact of land use change. So the combined impact is even worse, and we have really difficult times ahead of us unless we are going to do something about it. So if you look at this particular slide, what is driving the decline is basically our values and our behaviors. Global economic growth in the last half century has changed our world completely, almost unrecognizably, driving exponential health. We have a improved health. Our life has what they used to call it, our rate of survival, and people used to living is increased. Like people used to earlier die very early because of the lack of proper knowledge about medicines and medicines to provide. But today our lifespan has improved. We are living longer. So our standard of living has also changed. We live with much more consumerism, much more materialistic lifestyles, and this has come at a very huge cost to the nature and the stability of the Earth's operating system. We depend on these indirect drivers, whether it's for our food or whether we want our growth, whether it's for arms, ammunitions. So the main cause of this decline in species population on land, as observed in our Living Planet Index, is the habitat loss and degradation, including deforestation, and this is all driven by how we as a humanity produce our food. A lot of our forests, a lot of our resources, all of it is for basically how we produce our food. So that comes to my question, which I started at the top. I'm sure many of you will agree that biodiversity is definitely at the tipping point. Well, some people ask me, why does it matter? It would matter, isn't it? We are all connected. Humanity's increasing destruction of nature is having a huge, like almost catastrophic impact on our wildlife population, also on our human health. We are dependent, like you see this particular image from a state in India. I'm sure many of you would know what are these, and maybe you can put it up in the chat box to find out whether it is I can understand whether you all know about this particular image. So as this continues, this disconnect and also grows, the prospect of our well-being with the economic development paradigm is weakening. Our economic development and our human well-being both are so intertwined, but there is a weakening of this particular paradigm. If you move to the next slide, almost all aspects of human health and well-being on nature, we depend on this, like I said earlier, and what we are sitting today amidst, that is the disease. Sudha, move to the next slide. What we are seeing today, the connection between COVID-19, what is it? I'm sure many of you have already read up. The devastating loss of biodiversity is in large part to the very same environment destruction which is contributing today to the emergence of this disease, the zoonotic disease as we say. And this is not the first of the pandemic, and I'm sure you will bear me out, this is not also the last of the pandemic. As we increasingly get into the spaces occupied by wildlife, we are going to see increased number of these pandemics. Infectious diseases with animal origin represent almost 70% of all the recent pandemics and epidemics. As we all know, MERS, SARS, COVID, all of these. And this COVID-19 is just a reminder of the intimate, intricate, and delicate relationship that we have between the people and the planet. So biodiversity loss or ecosystem degradation, other human-driven disturbances, these are all going to increasingly be linked to the occurrence, risk, and spread of this zoonotic and vector-borne diseases. And in many instances, climate change is going to act as a multiplier. It is going to increase this. So what do we need? We need a new deal for nature and people. The world cannot afford repeated disasters like this, which is on the scale of COVID-19. It has not only been a disaster in terms of health, it has been a disaster for economy. So many people across the globe and even in India are suffering economically because of this pandemic. And also this going back to normal is not going to be good enough. What is a new normal? How are we going to go back to normal? These are the questions that we need to ask. And for decades, humans have been using resources faster than they can be replaced by nature. Our current lifestyle means that humans are currently using 1.6 times more than the earth can really generate. It is like living off 1.6 earths. So not only one earth, but 1.6 times more space needed. Every year we leave the nature weaker with fewer resources and less able to ensure our future survival. So biodiversity loss is one symptom of the damage caused by these unsustainable activities. And this underscores the real need for a global new deal for nature and people, which has clear, ambitious goals, which takes us onto the path of recovery at least by 2030. This is what we need to work towards. So I request Sudha to show the video. Sudha. Maybe in a different browser if it doesn't play music. Can you play it in a different browser? Because in Google Meet, sound is an issue. I don't understand how to share sound.
Yes, ma'am. I'll try that.
Are you able to?
I'm just opening on YouTube, ma'am, the link.
Okay.
Others call me Mother. Some call me Nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
Thank you, Sudha. Can you reshare the presentation? Is it showing? Okay. So what can you do? We need to step up for the planet. We can all play an important role in monitoring the health of our local environment. To help your local wildlife thrive, you need to know what is there and what is not. When you have a picture of your local biodiversity, you can consider how it is affected by your actions and those of other people in the local area. You can decide what changes can be made to help the wildlife that is there and even attract new species and improve species. And over time, I'm sure you will be able to make a difference. And I'm sure you all who are here already know about all these things, but it is like I keep saying, move to the next slide, Sudha. It is about trying to get more people involved. You could also, people around you could also develop your own LPR, ask about how can you prepare a living planet report about your local area. What is it that is available? What is it that needs to be, that what was seen, not seen, and keep tracking it. So these are the ways that one can, involve the local people, increase in biodiversity, explore the reasons behind it. Just observing, like we from WWF had started doing during this lockdown. We did many sessions on backyard birding, backyard butterflies, watching just from your balcony the changes in and around your homes. So there are a lot of those kind of things which we were trying to promote general public as well as students to do. So this is all I have to say. We can move to the next slide, which is basically whoever wants to volunteer with us, and then we can have the open house for questions. Thank you very much. I hope I was with my time limit.
Yes, yes, Farida, yeah.
Yes, okay. I got an answer from Arshita Roy, who says that it's a living tree brood bridge, East Khasi Hills, Meghalaya. That's right, Arshita. Very good. I hope you did not Google your answer.
Arshita happens to come from Northeast India, not the Northeast
okay.
typically, but she is from somewhere from Darjeeling, nearby Darjeeling. So,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
she might be knowing, yeah.
She may have visited also.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes. There are any questions? I'll be happy to take them. The link has been shared by Sudha on the Living Planet report. Anybody needs to go through it. you can go through it.
So as Farida has mentioned, the session presently is open for uh, question answer. It's a question answer session. If you have any doubts, you can ask Farida. If you want to just know about what activities, different activities WWF is doing and how it is influencing, in steering the young minds towards nature and nature conservation, awareness about nature, etc., you can ask her. I would just, whenever I meet Farida and when we speak about, what WWF activities, how it influences young brains, I always mention that, I was influenced by WWF activity. I was a member of a WWF club in my school, and we took up lots of activities in the school, and maybe that has planted the seed that has grown into the tree that we see today.
That's
So,
kind of you say. That's kind of you to say that.
yeah.
Srinivaslu, why are you saying you were a WWF member? You are still a WWF member.
Yeah, student member. Farida, let me correct myself.
Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm just also sharing our email IDs, mine and my colleague Sudha's. So if anybody wants to contact us post the session also, we are happy to get any inquiries from you or any questions if you have. And you can also watch the link to that plastic ocean, which is given there. Do watch it. When I saw it the first time, I almost was in tears seeing that video. And it's a quite a poignant video. So,
Is there a question? Any question? I heard some murmuring. Okay, while we are waiting for the questions, I'll just share the feedback form for today. All the participants are requested to download this feedback form and fill up the required questions. And submit it so that it gets registered with us and it helps us in improving.
what is the session tomorrow and day after?
Tomorrow we don't have a session. Day after tomorrow,
Sunday.
day after tomorrow we have, if I'm not mistaken, who is speaking? We have Ravikant speaking. We have Sriram speaking. Sriram Reddy is speaking day after tomorrow, Monday.
Okay.
Ravikant is speaking on Tuesday, and we have Imran speaking on Wednesday,
Okay.
and Subhadra Devi is speaking on Thursday, the last day. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
4 more lectures are there.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
And
good ones.
with the participant, I also wanted to share that Mr. Ravikant has shared one of the links earlier. This is a simultaneous program, a parallel program that is happening in the Telangana Forest Department. It's about the quiz program, I believe. If Ravikant is around, he can just speak up about it. Ravikant? So can you share the link once again? Yeah,
Hello?
Mr.
Sir, I will share.
Yeah,
I will share.
please share the link.
Sir, this is an online. Yeah. Good evening to all. This is an online quiz for celebration of Wildlife Week, especially in Telangana state. So, which is organizing by Warangal Rural District. So, these all questions which related to what Telangana Forest Department is doing, and also some interesting questions which I prepared. I will share that link also. Thank you, sir.
If you get all right, what do you get, Ravikant?
Ravi has become busy. Yep. Okay, because there's a flurry of activities that are happening all around us because of the Wildlife Week celebration. I just got at least 6 messages about, some more talks being, interesting talks being floated. So, yep, there it comes. Yeah, Mr. Ravikant has shared the link. Those of you who are from Telangana, the Telangana participants, you can take part in this particular online quiz too, and see that how much you know about uh, Telangana. Okay, Imran has asked something like, do you think people in AP and Telangana are getting involved more in nature conservation of late? Yep, Farida, this is a question for you. Do you think people in AP or Telangana state, I would say, and Telangana state are getting involved more in nature conservation of late?
Well, the youth, Imran definitely is, because you can see more and more people coming forward to do something about nature and all. Only thing what I feel that people like you and Dr. Srinivaslu and Harpreet and all people who are working in this field, Ravikant or whoever is there, we need to guide them on the correct way to do it, because like I say, I'm sure that Sriram Reddy, when he's presenting about birds, I think he's going to talk about owls of Telangana. There is a lot of interest, but somehow at some point the interest seems more like a Facebook share interest kind of thing. So how can we deepen that interest? How can we increase it? Well, they are on the right path. Only thing, we'll have to make them engage them more, deepen that interest, and get them more involved. So that is what I feel, because there are people going around taking cameras, doing photography, and some of them are doing it very seriously and talking about nature conservation, using photography as a tool for conservation. But there are many who are just for Facebook updates and things like that. But if they have already started doing this, if they have the basic interest, maybe we can mold them towards that. And definitely it is not to the scale of what I have seen in many other states, but it is moving towards a positive trend. And I think it will depend on all of us on how we are going to able to engage them and get them into something interested which they like it to do the way they like. We cannot keep to the old ways that we had done, मैंने करा तभी मैं ऐसे करती थी करता था and all that. We'll have to speak the language that they are speaking, and we'll have to somehow engage them in that language which they like to hear. So that is what is going to be the main thing to do for them. I hope that answers Imran's question.
Yeah, I agree with you what you have said, Farida, and I also kind of at the center we are also kind of looking at taking these things seriously forward. And as you have rightly mentioned, we have lots of people who are engaged in nature watching, taking photographs, and as you have rightly mentioned, we sometimes think that they are restricted only up to the social media and all. One of the important aspects, or one of the important things that the center is doing, is to bring all of them together and say that okay, there we provide the platform, kindly upload the sighting records and all those things. As you are aware, we have started something called as Biodiversity of Telangana State, iNaturalist. There is a what you say, citizen science
Yes.
kind of involvement activity and all those things. It's slowly and slowly getting populated, and we are trying to get more and more people really get interested into this. I always tell them that take the photographs, share it on Instagram, share it on your Facebook pages, no issues with that. But also simultaneously try to feed into our iNaturalist website, so that it gets documented properly, and then people can use it for
Yes.
future research and all those things. One of the important aspects that we have to remember, that when we are doing all these things, biodiversity documentation and all those things, it goes a long way in creating the people's biodiversity register, or helps the local people to really get correct identified species to be enlisted in the PBRs, etc., etc. Most of the time we visit the field, take the photographs. Sometimes we share the location, sometimes we don't share the location, and all these things kind of deny, although we pat ourselves on the back saying that okay, Telangana or a particular region has these many different types of birds and these many different types of butterflies, moths, etc., etc. But really, that doesn't help in long term. It just takes space on our social media platforms. Let me put it that way. If we need to convert it into something which is scientifically documented, let's start contributing onto these kind of websites. We have Indian wildlife website, iNaturalist, that is going up to the. We also have what's that, I found butterfly, yeah, I found butterflies, and such kind of, there are many websites, as well as eBirds. I also see that many of our friends who are actively photographing birds in and around in the peninsular India are also contributing to the eBirds platform. So all of you who are interested in doing all these things, please, besides your social media platforms, kindly get into uh, cultivate the habit of posting your sighting records onto something that is going to be used by researchers, policymakers, both within India as well as outside India. So I know many friends, many a times we also at the IUCN red listing processes, we also look into all these records, all these, uh, platforms other than the social media. Sometimes if we are looking at rare birds, rare species, we also ask our volunteers and interns to go through social media records and find out where exactly these species have been reported and all those things. So not undermining anything, but what we are trying to say is get involved with more and more of such platforms wherein you can share your information, sightings, etc., that can be used by researchers, policymakers, administrators, etc., etc. Yeah, that's. I just wanted to add that. Dr. Chetan is asking, how is the self-sustainable living conservation of nature engaged and working in the current situation? Dr. Chetan, if you are around, you can ask the question.
How is the self-sustaining
Yeah, living conservation of nature engaged and working in the current situation.
Would you like to explain that better, Chetan, if you are on the call? I guess maybe what he's trying to say is that are we living sustainable enough? Does it contribute to conservation of nature? Or
Yes. That is what is
right.
all about.
So that is something which we all have to introspect and talk about ourselves, for the way that we are living. Is it sustainable enough, especially in your own lifestyle? I can personally say that I am maybe not 100% sustainable. There are so many things that there are where I even if I want to, I cannot be like if I want to eat organic food, there's not still not so much demand as one would want to. So it's extremely expensive. So can I afford to just eat all that organic food? Can I buy all of it? Well, maybe not. So the self-sustainable lifestyles where we try and make our lifestyle sustainable is something which we definitely need to introspect ourselves and try and see how much of that we do. And conservation of nature engaged and working in the current situation, I think in our own way, if we are looking at what do you do to conserve nature, how is your personal ecological footprint? Let me put it that way. Instead of saying conservation of nature, when we talk about ecological footprint, just like how carbon footprint is the amount of carbon emitted from any of our activities, similarly ecological footprint is basically the kind of stress we are creating by consuming the various natural resources. So when we look at our own personal ecological footprint, we can just see how sustainable you are, that you will yourself come to know in terms of what are the resources that you reuse in your lifestyles, or what are the kind of resources that you could overuse. I'm just always keep telling myself about water, which is one place which I know personally I could do better. So that is something that we need to talk about, like, our own sustainable lifestyles, like, how can we use a certain resource? Are we reusing the certain resource? Are we optimizing the resource use? So in the current situation that we are talking about, I don't think we are all living sustainable lifestyles. We can do much better, and it is a lot of things that each one can introspect and try and create that difference by calculating and looking at our own ecological footprint. Is Chetan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, Chetan? Good? Yep. Yeah. Good. He is having some, mic problems. So,
Okay.
yeah.
There was also Ravikant was asking if at all WWF is, I don't know if it's specifically for WWF, that if they are planning to start any projects on floral diversity in protected areas in Telangana.
We are not starting any project presently on floral diversity. Definitely, what we are trying to do is come out with a people-friendly publication on it, which may actually eventually start off something on floral diversity project. The idea is that, we all talk about fauna, and whether it is the big mammals, or we are talking about, more and more people are interested now in insects and different kinds of insects, odonates or lepidopterans and all that. But definitely, like, I would agree with you, Ravikant, not much people talk about the flora part, though plants are a very important component. So we are trying to come out with an interesting user-friendly book on plants of AP and Telangana, which will help not you and me, because we all already like plants, we already know quite a bit about it, but just a common man on the street, if he picks up the book and walks into any nearby forest or a garden, he should be able to use that book to identify the plant and feel happy about knowing a plant, and understanding its uses, and then he will know that why he or she will know why it is important for us to protect every bit of it. So that is what our long-term plans are.
Yeah, that's wonderful. In fact, most of the time when we are talking about, wildlife or biodiversity, I see that there is a big kind of, divide between floral and faunal diversity or approaches towards these two elements. I would request all of us who are interested in biodiversity to, not to show a kind of, preferential preference towards fauna, or preference towards things that look good. We call them as charismatic species. Look at me. I study snakes. I study scorpions. I study things that people,
Spiders.
yeah, bats. People hate. So see, that's where we need to start focusing on and try to bring in more information on things. So yep, plants also. I'm yeah.
Yes, there is one question which is actually marked to you, but
Yeah.
I would like to take that question.
Yeah,
if you
please,
don't mind.
please go ahead.
So-
Yeah, then I would.
So Raghu Shravan Kumar, he's asking that, how about the credits the photographer, whether it's a citizen science participant, get for sharing his records of a rare species. So Raghu, there was just day before yesterday, we concluded with the first Citizen Science Conference 2020. Where I was one of the organizing committee member, and there was a great deal of discussion on it by many citizen scientists who were recording their data on various citizen science portals like iNaturalist or IBP, India Biodiversity Portal, or I Found Butterflies, and all those kind of things. So there was a lot of questions on the same line, and it was said that, yeah, we should acknowledge the participant, whoever has either contributed data or contributed photograph. And ideally speaking, with good ethical practices, if you are using it in your publication, the particular person if it is a single species or even if it is a multiple species, should be acknowledged as either a contributor in terms of data collection or in terms of photograph color. In fact, there were a couple of articles that were shared in the conference where almost close to 10 authors were given, and 10 of these authors were basically citizen scientists who had contributed data online into the portal. So I think that is the way to go, and I'm sure that credit should be given to either the data a person who has given the data or even the photograph.
Yeah, I second that opinion, and we had been always taking care that whenever we are uploading our photographs and all those things, these are shared under the Creative Commons kind of attribute, and then it very clearly mentions that you cannot be using the material whatever has been shared on such platforms without crediting the owner of the material. So it is all, as Farida was mentioning, it is all the question of ethics and all those things. Yes, I have also kind of said that for the iNaturalist citizen science initiative that we have taken up on biodiversity of Telangana state, we said that those of you who are going to give us most number of sighting records or most number of species records, etc., we are going to recognize you. We are going to give you certificates saying that you have contributed these things. And what best way of getting recognition there? And more so over, you are having so many what you say, the digital footprint of yours in the iNaturalist or such kind of things increases. So that is something which is unfortunately I do not have so much of time to go and photograph species outside because of my nature of work here in the university. But I always think, had it been these kind of platforms available for us when we were young and we were going around, we might have said "Dhoom macha dete the." So on the platforms, we might have put as many photographs as it was possible for us to do. So, but unfortunately, what is it gonna give me? It's gonna give me the satisfaction that yes, and it is one more thing that you have to remember is you might not be knowing each and everything, and iNaturalist or other kind of such websites are not wanting you to upload only identified photographs or identified taxa. You can just mark it saying that you have marked it as unidentified, and other peers in the field are going to help you in identifying. I get lots of students sending me photographs of moths, butterflies, and even anurans, wherein I can help them in identifying, say that okay, this is what it is. So what happens is, in this way of exchange of information, you are learning by yourself. You are not just dealing with an unidentified toad or unidentified moth or something like that. You are also learning that okay, this is what the moth is called, and then next time you see it, you're going to call out the name, and other people, other students, other colleagues are going to know about it, saying okay, this is what it is called. So that's how you can increase knowledge about the biodiversity around us. Yeah, there are efforts that every one of us is doing, wherein we are trying to encourage people who are sharing their information with us. Do not kind of limit yourself thinking that our what you say, intellectual property would be stolen. Yes, it is difficult to say that people are not following unethical practices, but it is always good because you are sharing it under the Creative Commons. You can just also write to the people who have done such kind of things, and they will add an errata or something like that, and you can get the credit, the due credit in due time. So that's the thing. So I'm once again telling all my participants of this particular lecture that I have shared in the chat box the feedback form. You have to fill up the feedback form, and yeah, there's. Yeah, there is one thing. Yeah, please go ahead, Farida. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so my colleague Sudha has pasted a link over here, which y'all can copy and keep it for you for October 7th. It is a Play for the Planet nature quiz that we are organizing on, and that is a Zoom details also given. If you all can pass it on, and we have as maximum ensure maximum participants. A free quiz, everybody gets a certificate, winner gets a gift voucher, etc. So kindly use that, and if anybody wants the details, they can write to us also. We can send it over email as well. We want maximum participant from our state, so that's what I am looking out for. So I just pasted the link over here.
Yeah, thank you, Farida, and I also thank you and WWF for just making it start at 4 p.m. because that's the time when our lecture ends. So that's great that it's not overlapping. Wonderful. So, are there any more questions?
May I take a couple of minutes if you don't mind?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to. This first of all, this is a request for all the participants that I understand that it's a mixed group. We have students, we have amateurs who are interested in wildlife studies and all, and it would be really great if you could also interact, ask questions, and you don't have to worry if your questions are stupid. So just come up with something. It would be really, really great if you could interact, especially when you have someone like Frida, who I think I have to admit that this is the first time that I'm attending. I'm listening you talking, and I have to admit that it was really, really great to listen to you, Farida. And I also believe that that you don't have to be an expert to care for your nature. You can be just a responsible citizen. You can be anybody and still care for nature. So on my personal behalf, I really, really thank Farida for such a wonderful talk. And I would again request all the participants to just interact, to ask whatever is there in their minds, and let Farida has a wonderful experience, expertise, and encounters with the wildlife all over. So let's make best use of it. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you, Farida.
Yeah. Harpreet's question, as Harpreet's not question. Harpreet's comments has made me think about an incident wherein we were also wondering about something like this, and then the speaker on that day was saying that there are no stupid questions, only stupid answers. So yeah,
absolutely right, sir.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons why I also shared our email IDs, because I know what Harpreet is saying. I also was in that position when I was a student, always scared to ask questions. So I know there may be a lot of questions with people who think that their question might be a stupid question, but you can always send it to me on email and we'll be happy to answer, or else you can post it over here for answering.
Yeah, I know. I have shared the feedback form once again. There was a request that for the feedback form, and I have shared it once again.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add that it would be really, really great, if we can, because center would be more than happy to collaborate, and we are looking for more interactions of such kind, and hopefully in person. I just hope that this pandemic situation is over as soon as possible, so that we can collaborate and think about what projects we can take up together. Yesterday we had Avinash talking from Friends of Snake Society, and it would be really, really great if all these organizations can come together and contribute in whatever way possible to rope in as many people as possible, right from researchers, to students, to general public, to make them understand that how we can make efforts to not only academically but generally also how we can address the issue of wildlife conservation.
Okay, I see that there were no more questions coming in. So I would like to, before I call upon either Dr. Chetan or Dr. Harpreet to propose the vote of thanks on my personal behalf and on behalf of the Center for Biodiversity and Conservation Studies, Osmania University. I thank today's speaker, Ms. Farida Tampal, wonderful human being and a good friend of mine, for accepting our request to share her views with us. Thank you, Farida, and I call upon Dr. Chetan. Yeah, Dr. Chetan to propose the vote of thanks. Yeah, as I told you, the Chetan's mic is giving some problem. Yeah, Chetan, please use my system.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to orate the vote of thanks to Farida Tampal, State Director, WWF. This is indeed a great opportunity to have you, ma'am, here. And you have made us, I mean, pushed us to start thinking. And as the name says, you are I've known that you're a great orator and a deeply passionate conservationist. Apart from that, the lecture today about the history of WWF, or the red listing of species and the living planet, the sustainable living, biodiversity, and everything, which is really an important thing which everybody should think of and should plan to act accordingly. As you say, we are part of the nature and we can't dominate. And at the same point, how important both the flora and fauna drives for the earth and everything. So I'm sure you would be a great inspiration for everybody, talking about conservation, talking about self-sustainability, ecosystem services usage, or everything. And it's really great, and we are honored to have you here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I thank my colleague Sudha for sharing the presentation actually.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Farida.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, the other participants, as we have already shared the schedule with you. So on Monday, we are going to have a talk by Mr. Sriram Reddy, and Mr. Sriram Reddy is going to speak about owls of Telangana. And he would also, he's a, as I told you, he's a bird photographer with some objective and aims in his life. Like, he wants to photograph all the known bird diversity that we have within India. So that is what I have come to know from him. And I hope that, one day, very soon, he is going to realize that dream. And as people who are interested in documenting biodiversity and all those things, his wonderful photographs always kind of, attract us. Because as scientists, we never pay attention towards, taking images that, have such kind of, quality. but as a photographer, they pay attention towards all the nitty gritties of photographing animals. So it would be a good, opportunity for those of you who are interested in wildlife photography and all those things, or other people who are interested in getting involved or taking up wildlife photography hobby, to interact with him. So with these notes, I would like to end the today's lecture here. Thank you very much for all of you who have participated today. And I am once again reminding you that please, fill up the feedback form that the link has been shared with you, so that it will also help us in taking record of your attendance too. Thank you very much. Thank you, Farida. Thank you once again.